psychologists to the superheroes and supervillains. Then next to Dr. Drea, we have Alejandra Lopez. Alejandra is the director of Marvel's Wolverine, La Larga Noche, the first ever Spanish language scripted podcast for Marvel, and only the 5th female director and the first Latina to do so. Then we have Kayden Phoenix, writer, director, producer, and creator of A La Brava, Latina Superheroes. I'm wearing the t-shirt right now. In this superhero universe, Latinas of different upbringings fight against female injustices. Each book tells their origin story and social cause. In the end, the Latina superheroes form a team, A La Brava. Next to Kayden, we have Maritza Cabrera, talent and literary manager-producer at Zero Gravity Management. Zero Gravity represents a diverse roster of actors, writers, and directors in film, TV, and is also a full-service production company that has been behind films including Cop Shop and The Marksman. Its TV credits include one of the best shows on Netflix, according to me and in my opinion, Ozark. And she is a talent and literary manager at this management company, which is so dope. Okay, guys, so now let's get into the questions. Very exciting. We're here talking about Latina superheroes, Latino superheroes, which includes everyone in this room and everyone on this panel as well. As Latinos, we all grew up with strong women in our lives. Latinas, to me, represent strength, resilience, endurance, laughter. These women make a huge impact in our lives. Who were those Latina superheroes in each one of your lives? Or did you have somebody that influenced you and inspired you? We can start with Maritza on the other side.
My abuela, Graciela Fontela Garcia, was the matriarch of our family. She passed away a couple years ago. And she was just like a force of nature. And just taught us all of the things, regardless of, she had that old school Latina view of things of like, hey, you should get married if you're a woman, that kind of stuff. But then at the same time, she told me a story I'll never forget. She told me back in Cuba that she wanted to roller skate. She saw all these boys roller skating, and she wanted to roller skate, and her father said, no, you can't roller skate, only the boys can roller skate. So she somehow snuck a pair from like a boy and roller skated, and she broke her arm. And then the rest of the day was trying to hide it. But it was like her subtle way of being like, do the thing regardless of whether you're a man or a woman. So she was a force of nature even when she was young.
Kayden?
So for me, I'm fortunate. I had matriarchs on both sides of my family, and I didn't know it until you go into the real world, right? And you're like, no, it's a patriarchal oppressive society. Never knew that my whole life. But my mother, definitely my mother, and then on the other side, my great aunt. It's just always remembered. It wasn't just me, but like for Christmas or like the special holidays things, like you run into the house and the first person you see, right? You run through everybody and you go, I went to my great aunt, and every single person did that. And so like that was really special to me. I don't know how other families are, but that was always something like you showed your respects first, right, to the matriarch. And so definitely them too.
Yeah. Alejandra?
Hello everybody, thank you for being here. Definitely my mom. I'm blessed to say that actually both of my parents, when I told them I wanted to be a director, they're like, I'm from Puerto Rico, so they're like, we'll get on a plane, go to Hollywood, and have fun, we support you. And that's a blessing not every artist has, and I'm aware of that.
I would say my mother as well. She is an immigrant. She is half Chinese, half Ecuadorian. And for all my mixed Latinas and Latinos out there, I see you. And she was so graceful and so wise in her ways of kind of blending those cultures and normalizing that for me as a kid. And just showing me that you can just be yourself. She really kind of embodied that sense of ni de aquí, ni de allá. That sort of like, you're not really included, but you're not excluded, you're kind of both. And so I look to her when I have those feelings of like, I don't know if I fit in. And she really had this wonderful way to model how to just be authentically who you are.
I mean, there's clearly a pattern here.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm a mama's boy, and my mom is my first superhero. I immigrated to the United States at 11 years old, and she had 3 kids, and she found ways to give us the dreams that didn't even know we were allowed to dream. And this is part of it. So for that, I always look to strong Latina women as sort of my North Star. It's no mistake that Selena is like one of my greatest achievements. But at the same time, like all the Latinas that are a part of my life, my business partner, Yvonne Rodriguez, Cubana-Americana de Miami, you know, they're all bring strength, and that is a superpower. And that's what I look up to. So yeah, mi mami.
I love that. I love that so much. And Moises, talking about Selena, I just want to start there really quick because that made such an impact in all of our lives. You know, to many of us, Selena is a superhero. I mean, and she has affected women all around the world. You don't have to be of Mexican descent. I'm Cuban, you know, Puerto Rican. Why do you think Selena made such an impact with women all around the world?
I mean, you know, I can't speak for women because I'm a cisgender mestizo man, but I do think that she has that universality that we are looking for in our role models, especially for me, speaking, you know, from someone that I adored her growing up. She represented sort of that really Mexican-American sort of identity for me. I mean, Biri Biri Bama was part of her quinceañeras and her, you know, in her bodas. But I think when she passed away and her English music was released, she kind of like merged those two worlds, your American side and my, you know, Mexican side, for those who have those identities. And for me, it kind of like, for the first time I realized that those two don't have to be separated. They don't have to be, they can be integrated. In fact, being American is both, you know, and there is a lot of Latinidad that is part of this country. And I think seeing Selena merge those two worlds for me, it kind of clicked for the very first time that those two identities are actually just one.
Yeah.
And I owe that to her, and I feel like with her femininity and with her talent, that it also, you know, upends the patriarchy, you know, and it allows us, you know, that not so much fit in that, to look up to something that like represents kindness and sunshine. I did a lot of research about her, talked to a lot of people, and one thing was common. She was sunshine. She was like a really good person.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's probably the hardest superpower, to bring love and compassion and empathy at all times when you enter a room and when you deal with everyone. I think that's the hardest thing. And I think is the thing that we need the most now.
100%. And talking about, you know, feeling represented by this woman, you know, as an Afro-Latina myself, as Latinos in general, there's been this discussion lately of what does it mean to be Latino? What does it look like to be a Latino person, right? And there's that meme where it's like, so many different colors, so many different hair, like there is no, we're not just one thing, right? And Kayden, you have inspired, it's just so incredible what you are doing with the Latina superheroes and A La Brava, and representing women of different cultures. So you created A La Brava, the first Latina superhero team in history. 5 Latina superheroes with distinct abilities and storylines. Can you tell us about, just briefly about each of them and their abilities and what they do?
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, there's 5 superheroes. I didn't cover all heritages, of course, because it's a big Latina diaspora. But I tried my best. There will be a volume 2 with other origin stories as well. But for right now, we have Jalisco. She's my folklorico dancer de Mexico, and blades come out of her dress. She takes on the femicide in Mexico. It is dedicated to Mujeres Leguadas, and that's purposeful with all the pink crosses, because that is their symbol. And so I just wanted to honor them and bring them attention as well. Second one is Santa. She's my border town girl of Texas, and my Tejana. She goes up against a corrupt politician called ICE, which is Irene Chavez Estevez, but really she personifies ICE and everything that goes with that. So she starts stealing the people, putting them in the detention centers. Santa, of course, you know, breaks in, saves everyone. etc. The next one is Loquita. She's my Puerto Rico Cubana in Miami. She is my supernatural teen detective while she still goes to high school, balances high school life and family life and her new supernatural like detective life as well. The next one after that is Ruca. Ruca is my East LA Chicana. That's where I'm from. She travels down here to San Diego, to Barrio Logan specifically, because the kids in the neighborhood are being stolen. So she tracks them down and fights La Monja. That one deals with child trafficking. And the last one is Bandita, my Dominican gunslinger from New York. She has bullet bounce, meaning she can ricochet bullets off walls. She infiltrates a Broadway theater group that's taken advantage of the talent. And so she takes down, or tries to, take down domestic violence. And then A La Brava is the team one, and that's the one that's debuting here. And that one is feminism. So it's the group, they come together, females in political positions are being filled off one by one. And at the same time, there's a fair share bill being presented into Congress, and it's going up as well to the houses. And so you find out, the girls start, protecting the female politicians that are possible suspects to being, possible victims to being killed. And you actually find out which billionaire is behind it all. And so those are the things.
That's incredible that you came up with, that you created those women with these abilities and these super, powers that they have to, do better for the world. And I really appreciate that, so thank you. Talking about superheroes and their abilities and what they want to do to inspire others, to save people. Dr. Drea, as a psychologist who links superheroes and psychology, can you tell us what is the link? Is there a link between psychology and superpowers?
There is. When I think about working with people and being a coach, a supporter, a counselor, a therapist, and also working in creative arts, I believe that there's a lot we can gain from the superhero narrative. And it's not specific to those particular powers, but I think it has a lot to do with what makes us resilient and what our strengths are. We all have a quest for significance, a quest for purpose. That's the human experience. I think with, speaking personally from my experience, being in graduate school, feeling impostor syndrome, not seeing other people who look like me as I advance through, dissertation, PhD, and through a career in a field that doesn't really celebrate us in the same way that maybe other media would. I felt the need to kind of bring a face to this work and show that this is what a psychologist looks like. This is the work that we can do. And to move away, to dismantle the academic industry a little bit in their gatekeeping. Information can be accessible. Information about mental health, psychology, about science can be information that everybody can get. And so I started my podcast specifically to give that information away, to ensure that anybody could have that information that relates psychological science to pop culture, to creative arts, to entertainment media, so that anyone can access that information and that could really enhance or be included in their writing.
And anyone can relate to that and make it, digestible for people to be like, oh, I can relate to that character because that character is going through the same thing that I am right now. And, there's so much going on right now in the world, and our mental health is just so important. And to be able to have a platform or something that you can reach out for and look to is super important. So thank you for doing that. It's the Arkham Sessions, guys, the podcast. Definitely listen to it if you haven't already. It's so amazing. The lack of representation that we have as a community, I feel that the pendulum is swinging the other way. Some people might not feel that way, but I do. I feel the pendulum is swinging the other way. Especially in the comic world right now. I mean, we have Blue Beetle coming out, which is going to be super mainstream. Do you think, Maritza, I want this question for you. Do you think, as an industry, that Latinos are? I mean, you look at the breakdown and you see, are Latinos being more included? Are we getting more of those opportunities? Is the pendulum swinging the other way?
I think that it is, unfortunately, not fast enough.
Yeah.
Latinos represent about 19% of the U.S. population, but we're only represented in 5.5% of film and television. When I moved to LA about 10 years ago, and I started off as an actress, and the frustration that I was seeing as an actress was that all the roles that were coming in for Latina women were either I would be playing the maid or the whore. And I was just like, that's really all that was there. And I'm seeing more variation of there's more dynamic roles for women, Latinas, and also Latinos. And I think part of that is, and part of the reason why I jumped into management and production was the conversation kept being like, how do we change this narrative? And the conversation kept being that we need to change it up here. We need more executives, more writers, more producers, more managers, more agents, more people of color, Latinas, women, LGBTQ, because if we don't have them up here, we're not gonna see the change down here. So I wanted to be part of that change. And it's happening, and I see it on the lit side too, when we're seeing who's being asked in the room. Once upon a time, you would look at the end of a show and it'd be all Caucasian males writing on a Latino story. And you're like, well, what's that? Why couldn't we find one Latino writer? We couldn't find a Latino producer? What's going on? And now it's more inclusive, more diverse. It is happening. And not to say that there's anything wrong with Caucasian older males or males at all. Like, there's a lot of them that are fantastic allies. But sometimes the story needs to be told, written by us, told by us,
100%.
actors who are representative of that. And so it is happening, but again, just not as quickly, but it certainly helps with people like these wonderful people on this panel, and also you being an incredible actress, that it does help to push it forward.
Can I actually jump in? I agree with you so much, and I've noticed that there seems to be this kind of shortcut that if you include a Latina especially, that is a shortcut for trauma. And as a science consultant, I look at scripts, I talk to writers and creators and folks who are developing characters, and sometimes, especially now, it seems like the inclusion aspect is, well, we'll include this character and label them as Latina, and that is kind of the code for trauma. And it's like we really have to communicate and spread the message that, like, being Latina is not trauma. That is an incredible disservice to who we are. And while I'm seeing more inclusion, I think what you're speaking to reminds me of that version of inclusion.
Yeah, I think it's the idea of the representation matters, but also the kind of representation. Like, sure, we could be drug lords, but also we could be an owner of a cafe, and the workers there could be Latino, and the doctor could be Latino. We don't all have to kill each other and do. Although sometimes that is cool to be the fighting. But this really helped when I did that, right? You're all like, oh, now I know what she means.
It's great that you pointed out, I mean, especially, the people on this panel, but the women on this panel. I mean, Alejandra, as a director, as a woman, as a Latina. I mean, I haven't been in close quarters with someone who holds all of those titles. So that's pretty badass to say that. And I mean, to be the first Latina, to be one of 5 women to be asked to direct this podcast is so amazing and incredible. What, in your opinion, what was the impact that you wanted to make with the Spanish-speaking La Larga Noche? Like, what is the difference between that, obviously that it's in Spanish, but like, what's the main difference that you wanted to put forth between that and The Long Night, the English version?
I think it's the simple fact that, if Hollywood wants to listen to original or new stories, I'm like, well, we are all stories here, but my story is in Spanish.
Right.
Are you okay with that? Like, why are you so scared? You know what I mean? let me prove it to you that it's okay. There is an audience out there that's willing and would love to hear their favorite superheroes speak their own language. You know what I mean? Like, how crazy is that? So yes, to answer your question, it was a huge honor and a big responsibility. But to follow what Maritza said, it's also beautiful to see that I worked with 4 executives from Marvel. 3 were American, 1 was Mexican, and at the beginning of the podcast, during the casting process, well, obviously they send their list, and then obviously the director sends, her list or his list. And obviously the 3 Americans were like, we don't speak Spanish, and we're okay with that, So I'm gonna let, I think his name was Brian. We're gonna let Brian, who's the Mexican producer, make this process with you. At the end, the point is, on my list was literally the same list he had.
Oh, wow.
So Marvel was like, well, Ale, you just proved us again that this whole podcast is in your hands.
Right.
And literally, they couldn't give me any notes because they didn't speak the language.
Yes!
So this was literally all me. And then the sound editor, he worked in Cuba for 4 months, but that was about it. So I literally had nobody to like, how do you say that?
Yes,
It was just like me at my home in the pandemic saying, I think this sounds good. You know what I mean?
And it's crazy that, Spanish-speaking animation has been, part of our lives for so long, and now that it's becoming more known mainstream, I remember Moises hearing Celestino, talking about, the Japanese, like the animation that you grew up, watching as a kid, and it was Spanish language, right?
Correct, and it was Japanese animated series that never kind of made it through the filters for America because it was too intense.
Like you said, like una telenovela.
It was like a telenovela for kids. If you all can, I'm gonna date myself, but it's Candy, and it was this orphan girl in the turn of the century, and like they went through everything. Like her first boyfriend died, it broke his neck when it was like thrown off of a horse, and that was like episode 10. We were all crying at school. It was like, I'm 30, but it was like in Spanish, it was storytelling, and it just opened the world to dream up of these new, as kind of adventures that we, I credit that to my storytelling. I started like drawing comics as a result of that.
That's so incredible. That's so amazing. And because now with Astro Lucha, with what you're doing with Astro Lucha, I definitely want to talk about this because it's the future of, the future, basically. Can you talk a little bit about Astro Lucha, what you're working on right now?
Yeah, I think I want to talk about representation, the fact that we are not giving opportunities, and that there is this enormous bottleneck of talent. I'm already part of a lot of communities. I mentor all sorts of like Latino and Latina writers and directors because I really do feel that, first of all, the numbers don't lie, right?
Yeah.
Like it can't get any worse, you guys. Like in front of behind the cameras. So that's an opportunity to be ready for the wave, right? To be talented, to work on your craft. I'm a growth mindset. But as a result of it, I see needs. Like we have projects, but they're not being greenlit. We have a slate of Latina filmmakers that have their like A24 films ready to go. They just need $500K or like $600K to just finish and be there at that level. And so I went and asked for this money, and nobody wants to give it to us. They love our cause, but nobody wants to give it to us.
Right.
They think we're talented, but nobody wants to give it to us. So I'm like, is there a way that outside of the system and maybe in the tech world, I can get this funding in order to push these creators forwards to like make sure that like our stories are being told in an authentic way from us? It's like, if I have to build a tech company in order to make that happen, I have nothing else better to do. It's like, I'm gonna put in the work, So we built Astro Lucha, and especially it's an NFT funded company, and NFT gets a lot of bad rap and negativity, but the technology is what you use with it, right? And the technology allows us to create a collective where the funds are gonna go there, and from that collective, we decide as a group to give money to the next filmmaker, Latina, especially that story. And also, in addition to that, we get to create a league of superheroes, and we have 3 of Latina superheroes right here. I'm working with comic book giants like Phil Jimenez and Paulo Raimundi, and there's another list that are gonna single-handedly create from the ground up a league of 1,000 superheroes that represent everyone across the board that needs that kind of role model, that we need to see ourselves with those kind of powers. And so far, we've gotten a great reception, and hopefully, with this project, we'll be able to put our stories forward.
That's incredible. You seem pretty fearless to me.
With this mask, it's almost like...
Besides the mask,
I was like, should I just wear it and keep it on? And I'm like, no, screw it. I'm Celestino, and I'm here to change representation for all Latinos and Latinas.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that. It takes a lot of guts, and like Dr. Drea was saying, getting over your impostor syndrome to do the things that we do as Latinos in the industry. I mean, we're constantly questioning ourselves and what we're doing, and is this going to be good enough? Alejandra, being a woman and a director in the Marvel world, did you experience any of that? I mean, obviously, you had to have some kind of fear. Like, how did you push through? Like, what can you tell the people here about like their fears and like how to push through that in moments like this? And it can be whatever it is for you. Honestly, it can be whatever it is for you. Did you experience it? If it's no, then no.
For me to be where again, I know it's not a long career, but
It is, and it's you're making it like give yourself the flowers. Yeah.
To the level of confidence you have in yourself. I got hired to do a job, and that's what I'm going to do. And I don't need nobody's approval. I don't need, I know how to work with actors. In this case, I know how to work with audio, and I'm just here to, I wouldn't say even prove, just to share the world like this talent or gift God gave me. You know what I mean? Because we're not doctors here. Nobody's dying. It's
Except for Drea.
No, but what I mean is, we're not having open heart surgery. Let's not forget to have fun in this business, because it is entertainment.
Except for Drea.
That's a great.
So I'm with all confidence, I'm able to say now, I had no fear. I felt no fear. I came in so confident, but again, it's been a journey for me to be here and say that now.
Right.
There were obstacles in the way. Of course, we're all humans, but just confidence and be someone that was supportive people and inspired by great people like this. It is possible.
Yeah.
It is possible.
That's a great, segue, because, it does take a lot of personal work, and belief in yourself to get to a point where once you get those opportunities, like Celestino was talking about, to just go for it and say, screw everyone, I'm going to do me, and it's going to be my point of view, right? Dr. Drea, what, advice? Are you allowed to do that without getting paid? She's a doctor. Yeah. Can you say, for us who are kind of going through those feelings of not feeling good enough, or like how, just like maybe a little tip or something to get there?
Yeah. I feel like imposter syndrome is lifelong. Even this morning, I felt a little intimidated being on this panel with these panelists. And I think that's a lot of, your personal history comes up, and the experiences that you have through your early childhood and then into, especially the phase where you develop your passion and know, okay, this is what I want to do. I never saw people do this thing that looked like me, that shared my culture and heritage. This panel, I don't think, in the last 10 years that I've been coming to Comic-Con, I've never seen a panel like this, Kayden. So this, my first piece of advice is find those spaces that honor our identities and authentically, right? And then individually, which is the work that I do with myself and also with clients, and I work at UCLA, so I work with a lot of Latina and Latino students who struggle a lot with feeling like they don't belong in that kind of institution. And I work with that institution that historically did not care about someone like me, historically had policies and practices that were designed to keep me out of an institution like that, right? So I have to constantly battle those feelings of, do I belong here? Can I bring value to this kind of place? Can I, even be myself and be in this kind of place? So that individual level of advice is make sure to affirm yourself and think about the things that you're good at. You have this resume that is part of who you are, and when you start to feel that sense of like, gosh, I don't know if I should be doing this, if I should even be here, it's kind of like a little mental practice. Think about the things that you have gone through to be in the rooms that you've been in, right? And when we look around and we see, I've been in rooms where it's just white men talking about diversity and inclusion, talking about minorities, talking about all those things, and it's a hard place to be in, but I have to feel the confidence like you mentioned. It's that confidence and self-affirmation and almost telling yourself, these are the things that I've done and I deserve to be here.
Don't wait for it to
Just as human beings, period. You guys saw the NASA photos recently. It's just like, we deserve to be here, and I'm so glad that each of us get to tell our stories from our point of views and share that, with the world. Moving forward, what is, and this is a big question, but starting from that end to here, what is your goal? What is your goal with your work and what you're doing now in the industry? Like, what is your ultimate dream? And honestly, be honest, because we're all here, we're all human beings, and we're here.
Yeah, I think the dreams are fluid and they change quite a bit. I'm about to hit my 10-year anniversary of having moved to LA, and my dreams 10 years ago, if you would have told me I would be on this panel or that I would be a manager for incredible lit clients and actresses and a producer at Zero Gravity Management, I would be like, yeah, right, whatever. Or producing, I'm in post right now for my first feature film. I'm in pre for a television show and a feature. I would be like, you crazy. If you were to tell me I'm in this panel, I'd be like, no. But I'm here. And so I think there's a lot more work to be done. Again, the reason why I transitioned into this role was to have more of our stories told, to be the person representing more Latinos in this community, to be able to tell all of our stories, and also just, not just Latinos though, there's also other underrepresented minorities, diversity, inclusion. Again, I have a lot of women that I represent, I have a lot of BIPOC, LGBTQ, like all of our voices, but yes, I have a very large Latino roster. And so I'm just really excited to see what we can all do together to see what other stories we can be telling on film and television.
And that's why we need you.
Yeah.
That's why we need you. Kayden.
My long-term goals, I'm hoping to be a short-term goal, is to have my superheroes, whether the whole team themselves or origins, be a show or a movie, whether it's live action or animated, it really doesn't matter, right? You think of Batman or Ninja Turtles, it really doesn't matter, they bounce back and forth, right? You just wait a season or a couple of years. And so that's one of my short-term goals, hopefully. And then my overall goal is just for equality, honestly, because I don't have equality.
And you're definitely doing that with your work, so, just keep going, and hopefully with the people in here who are now aware of every person on this panel, please just share everyone's work, what everyone's doing, because that's how it starts, right? Or that's how we keep going, that's how we succeed, is with the support of everyone. Alejandra, how about you?
everything starts with a blank final draft page on the computer. Right? So as a writer and director that I am, I like to see myself as the vessel to tell our stories, because at the end, I'm leaving this earth eventually, but my craft will not. So as long as I have something that will positively influence the world, I can die.
Wow. Dr. Drea?
In my work as a science consultant, I honor and amplify other people's art, and so I just want to continue to be in the room, so to speak, to not just be in the room, but be in the seat and have a voice. Those are all very different things, but that's the North Star, is to kind of try to continue to be present, visible, and supportive.
Love that.
Thank you for that question, and I really do agree with the fact that dreams evolve. I am living my dream now. So I couldn't have done it without the support of a lot of people that opened those doors for me, including Latinos, Black creators, queer people. Like, they were all championing me. They saw me and they opened that door. And because I'm living my dream, what happens when you leave your dream is like, you obviously push for more stories and to continue to creating. That is my purpose. That's my calling. I knew it from college. I was like intoxicated during a spring weekend and said like, my purpose is to be a writer. And they were like, cool dude, we're gonna miss the concert. And I'm like, yes, but I'm a writer. And so that was how I declared myself into this craft. But now I am working to a bigger dream, which is passing it on. Allowing others to rise up at the same time, allowing other storytellers to live their dreams the same way that dream was given to me. David Perez was a TV writer on American crime that actually believed in me the very first time. When he read my book, he understood where I was coming from. It took a Latino to no Latino and our struggles, and he sent my materials over to ABC, and that's how I got my first TV job. To this day, I don't call him Davey, I call him Padrino. And he loves it. You know how Latinos love, like, hey, Padrino, yeah. He's like, chuckles, but he never corrects me. He is my Padrino Literario, you know, my literary godfather. And I still check in, and I like have a responsibility to him over text. We never almost talk, but I just over text, I just mentored another writer. And that's how we pass it on. And my dream now is to pass it on and have other creators have that dream come true for them as well.
To everyone here in the audience right now, can't you just see what each of their superpowers are from what they said, right? Like, everyone in this room has that, and use them as the inspiration, you know what I mean, to write that script, you know, submit for that play, you know, actively create your own work, do whatever it is. Honestly, nobody's stopping you. You know what I mean? Do it. Just do it. Are we doing audience questions?
Yeah.
Questions from the audience, please. Sir, will you say what your name is and yeah.
My name is Martin. I'm actually not Latina, but Filipino. So it's parallels. My question for
Primo, you're a primo.
my cousin says we're the Latinos of Asia.
Yeah!
For Drea, because I'm an LMFT, so I totally see you with Impostor Syndrome and with community mental health, and it's all Caucasian.
Yeah.
But speaking on Impostor Syndrome, I'm wondering, do you feel like as this whole like decolonization movement picks up steam, do you think that that Impostor Syndrome is going to affect us less and less?
That's a great question. In our field, this movement toward decolonization and working from inside the community, all through my studies, I learned about the frameworks and practices through a white lens. And there would even be questions on my exams saying, you know, let's say you're treating a Hispanic or Latino person, and I'm like, but I am. Like, that's, but, all right. So we have to kind of, in certain academic industries and fields, and I'm sure this is true with media too, you sort of have to put yourself outside your body and almost align with white supremacy, which is very difficult for our psyche, right? There's a lot of fragmentation that happens. So to answer your question, I think that we've been battling imposter syndrome as we center ourselves as leaders, as voice changers, as folks that are working from within the culture and amplifying our communities. I think that we will feel much more authentic in that work toward decolonization. But I work with media and psychology, so I want to also say that what we see on screen and in comic books and on TV really impacts our self-esteem, our self-efficacy, how we feel about ourselves. Growing up, I did not see people like me. I would read Archie comics and squint and be like, oh, Veronica is
Kind of.
could be Latina, like I would pretend, right? To have those experiences, to be able to find this media and see ourselves in it is a huge part of that movement as well.
As a non-doctor, but as a Chicana, I know that's your question. But I grew up with the exact same phrase, decolonize your mind. And I can see it when people answer it and they're like, oh, they say it from this perspective because that's all they know, right? As opposed to this is actually, what the truth is. And so like the imposter syndrome, I don't have that. And I'm very fortunate to be like that. I was very sheltered, so I didn't know any of that extra stuff. But it works in my favor, right? With the whole matrix, I totally am hardcore equality because that's the way I was raised. Because I didn't know better in a very sheltered, nice way, ignorant way. But yeah, I think it actually changed. Decolonize your mind, so you stand for yourself, and someone's mad at you because they're white, whatever. That's their problem, not yours. But that's it. And, they don't a lot of In regards to my books, females, I would say it's very female skewed, but boys, read my book, they don't say anything, they don't make faces, and I watch them over the years, they kind of change. My things have been out for 3 years, but they change, everything changes over time because now sons will pick up the book. The father or the mother will be like, hey, do you want this? And it's a boy, a little boy. Obviously all fathers are very supportive of their daughters in that sense, so I always see that. But now they're like, oh yeah, of course you can read it, and they'll get it for their son. And that's a change, right? That's a decolonize your mind, because you don't have to, uphold the patriarchy. You don't have to. We see the patriarchy already falling, right? We fight just our government. And so it's just so I think it does. That's just me, though.
I think we only have 5 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get at least one other question.
I have 2 questions, because I think this is such a great platform, and it's amazing that this panel exists. Okay? I'm a Guatemalan gringo. So speaking on behalf of diversity and mixed races everywhere, I have 2 questions. 1, to any high schooler or someone struggling to start college, someone that is unsure of where they're finding themselves creatively, what are some words that you could tell them as they're trying to navigate their careers or finding themselves in the industry? And number 2, because this is Comic-Con, right? This is the top. If you could speak to anyone, the head of publishing, the head of streamers, the head of big media, research data, what would you tell them so that we can advance or we can continue our growth of diversity and inclusion?
I'll take the second question.
That's
Because
good.
I have those conversations.
Yeah, and you've been.
Green light our shows, our movies, our projects. We will show up. Give us the opportunity to create bigger audiences for you. Selena was a global hit. It was on 26 million households the first month. But it was a struggle to even convince people to make it.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I was like, oh my God, how come you didn't come to me? We did. You didn't want it. So that is sort of how can we prove it even more? That we are here. Spanish is one of the top languages in the world. Why does that not make sense? Just give us the opportunity. Green light our shows. It's a drop in the bucket.
Thank you. I don't know if we have time for something else, but how much time do we have? 2 or 3 minutes. Anybody want to answer the first question?
I'll quickly say, working with college students and pre-college scholars, mentorship is a huge, huge deal because we feel lonely, we feel invisible, we feel unseen. If we're first gen, we're navigating things on our own. So find those kind of off the grid, non-manualized, deinstitutionalized places where that mentorship exists. I would say the online platforms, social media often can offer that if you can find that first.
And I want to add quickly, if it's okay.
Please.
As artists, we should never ever compare with each other. I do believe everyone has their own journey. And we do have that sixth sense, whatever I call it, the gut. You know, for example, I did not go to film school. And that's okay, I did it. And that's okay, people can go to film school and do it. But what I'm saying is just follow your gut and there's no right way.
Amazing. Guys, if you haven't been to Kayden's booth, please head over.
An artist alley, so on the far left when you enter, it's FF07.
So head there if you haven't already. Buy some of her amazing creations and just read her stories. They're incredible. Moises, do you have?
Yes, we have a bunch of Selena posters if you want one, and Astro Lucha pins if you want one as well. Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us here today and for your support. This is so exciting. Hopefully we see more of this in Comic-Con to come. So, write about it, tweet about it, tag us, and, let's make it happen. Let's keep going and, create more characters and opportunities and stories for us in the future. And I hope to see you all again soon. Thank you.